Hello Internet, it is Ryan, JustRyan here, and today I am here with a video tutorial on Blender, the basics. So, today I'm going to be showing you what you need to do to get the basics down and get started 3D animating. Now, I've been using Blender for quite a few years, so I know a lot of the features and everything, but I'm going to be showing you basic key commands, other things like that, mostly key commands, because there's a lot of them in Blender, but also showing you some tips, basic 3D modeling, some viewport navigation, and some user preferences you may want to enable. I'm going to be showcasing this series mostly towards game designers, but if you like to do animation, most of these tips still apply. This is just 3D modeling in general. I'm not going to be covering rigging in these tutorials, mostly because I use, for anything that's rigged, I typically use either an auto rigger through Mixamo, which is for all my characters. Alright, let's get started. After that bit of a spiel in the beginning, let's get started. Alright, so let's jump right into it. Today we're going to be showing, like I said, the basics. So, here we have our cube. This is your default scene. Now if you're wondering how I'm moving around, if you have a mouse, if you don't have a mouse, I would recommend grabbing a mouse, grabbing a full keyboard. If you don't necessarily need a full keyboard, but it's extremely helpful for Blender, unless you want to go into user preferences and reassign everything to what would fit best for your needs. However, I would just recommend getting a full keyboard with the number pad and making sure you have a mouse. Now, I have both of these things, so I'm ready to continue. To move around the viewport like so, you're going to want to use the middle mouse scroll wheel. The scroll wheel will zoom you in and out if you scroll it, but if you press down on the scroll wheel, you will be able to navigate around. If you hold shift and hold down the center scroll wheel button, like how we were moving around here, you will get positioned around like that. Control will zoom, or you can just use the basic scroll wheel as well. Next, I'm going to be showing you how you can change viewport modes. Now, if you have the number pad, if you're in the viewport, you can press 1 to go front, 3 to go side, Control 3 to go other side, Control 1 to go other side, 7 to go top, Control 7 to go down. Now, those are all the basics. I don't use those a lot, but they are helpful when I do need to do some things. Now, I'm going to be explaining now if you have a number pad, press 5. You'll notice the viewport changes slightly and it looks a bit flatter. Now, here's why. If you go into press 1, press 5, all on the number pad still, you will get this, which is orthographic mode. If you press 5 here, it will transition back to perspective, orthographic, perspective, orthographic. Now, you don't need to memorize these terms. I'm just using them because those are the terms that you would use. Now, perspective is what you're typically going to be using for just viewing objects like so. And if you're going to be doing complex objects, or you're just going to be 3D modeling an object from the side, like if I have concept art, then I'm going to be using a orthographic mode. I'm going to put my concept art using this panel over here. I will go down, check my background images, add an image, and I'll put my concept art in here, and I'll set it to, like, say, my side view, and then I'll be able to 3D model from my side view and see the concept image in the back. Now, that's typically what you would use this for, or if you just need some exact measurements on stuff, like if I'm going here, I'm going to tab, if I select my top, I can go in here and G. If I hold Control, I can move this. I'll explain actually editing the object in just a moment. So, now that you've learned the basics of navigating the viewport, hopefully, if you haven't. Now, 9 actually flips your view if you want to use that instead, so I can go, if I'm here, flip, 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 flip. Okay. That's the basics, and you can experiment with some of the key controls. Those are the basics for navigation. And now we're going to be moving on to using selecting objects, using that sort of thing. Now, I would not recommend using left click at all unless you want to set your center point differently. And next, right click selects objects. Typically it's left click on other programs, but this one is right click. So you're going to want to use right click to select objects. Now, some objects, I would recommend noticing this. Over here on the side is the properties panel. Now this is where you're going to be adjusting all of your different properties and different options, basically, as the name implies. Here I don't have much set back here, but if you have a graphics card and you would like to utilize it in rendering, which I highly recommend, go down to user preferences. User preferences is obviously where you adjust all of your preferences. Now I just maximize mine so you can see it better, but yours is going to automatically start minimized like that. And what you're going to want to do is, if I go to system, I can use, so right now if I hit none, it's CPU by default, which yours I'm pretty sure will be CPU by default. Or I can use my GeForce GTX 760, which is much faster. I would recommend doing that. And save your using settings, and you will be able to now use your GPU, and which is much faster, and obviously much faster, so it's, yeah, you want a faster render, right? So you want that. Now I recommend, if you want to do realistic stuff, if you're not using anything on Blender render, I don't recommend it unless you're trying to go for this really flat shading look. If you would like a better shading, more realistic light, everything, I'd recommend switching to Cycles Render and setting your device to GPU compute instead of CPU, which basically gives you the option to use your GPU instead of your CPU. Now, we'll just quickly render this scene, and mine took a second for the default cube. You can judge yours based on mine. Mine's a GTX 760, NVIDIA GeForce GTX 760 graphics card, meaning that I'm like middle. I'm not low quality, I'm not low end, high end, I'm just sort of in between. It works decently. Honestly, you can choose any graphics card that you want, or if you're using a stable computer, it may or may not have a graphics card. That's up to you to find out. And it won't give you the option to use a CUDA device it won't give you an option down here if you do not have a graphics card. So, and also please note, some graphics cards do not respond with Blender, meaning that they are either too underpowered to be used, or they're just running your displays basically by that point, or they're just not supported by Blender. One or the other. Most graphics cards are supported by Blender, and I think almost all of them are supported. I've had one which didn't work with Blender because it was very underpowered, but still, you can use your graphics card if you choose. Now, time to get into some of the interesting stuff. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving this cube around. I'm not going to be building anything until the second tutorial, or maybe the end of this tutorial, but we're going to get into basics of this. So, G is for grab. Grab it and move it around. S is for scale. Size it. Size it up, scale it. R is for rotate. Now, R is for rotate. Rotate it however you would like. Now, the other thing that you want to keep in mind is that if you need to rotate, say I want to rotate on the x-axis, I would hit R, then X, then I can rotate it. Or I can press R, X, and then I want to rotate it, let's see, 90 degrees. I just rotated it 90 degrees by typing in 90, or you can do negative 90, and it rotates it the other direction. You can see the number in the bottom left. You'll see it changing on mine. So right now it's 209.48 on global X. And you can do this with Y or Z, so RY, RZ, like so. And this also works with G, grab. Also works with it also works with scale on the x-axis, the y-axis, or the z-axis. And if, say you want to scale it on the x and y, so S, Shift Z. So when you press Shift Z, it removes Z from the scaling. So now I'm just scaling on the x and y. Now, as you saw there, I scaled it, but then I just removed all the changes that I was making. That's right click. Now if you want to keep your changes, press either enter or left click. Like so. Control Z is undo, Command C if you're on a Mac, and that is the basics of navigation and editing an object. The basics. Now we're going into the editing mode. Press Tab or go down here and select Edit Mode. And this mode allows you to actually edit the faces of an object, the edges of an object, and the vertices. Like so. So now I can select a vertice, an edge, and a face. Or you can press A and select all. And A also works to select all or deselect all in the object mode as well. And Tab just toggles edit mode. You toggle edit mode with Tab. Now, when we're in this view, when you right click, you can select the different faces. So I can just grab mine on the Z or something like that. And you can change the different modes. You can switch to different modes down here. I use face a lot, but you can also use edge or point, which both are equally as useful. Now I'm going to be using face mode for the sake of this tutorial because it's easier to recognize the changes I'm making. Now, if I say I wanted a smaller top, like something like this, okay? Well, geez, there, something like that. Well, I would need to go in, so I'm going to undo my changes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press E for extrude, and I can extrude like so. I wouldn't recommend doing this. See how it gets all weird and you see the little lines on it? That means that it's intersecting with another object and it will look weird when you render. So I recommend avoiding that if at all possible. It should be possible. So I'm going to extrude and I'm going to right click so it just extrudes it. Now if I need to undo this, Control Z like I said before. Then extrude, right click. You can scale it by pressing S like the other mode. All the controls from the other mode work, so G, R, S. Now I'm going to extrude again, and then I click to keep the position. And now you can do the basics of 3D modeling. So I have more experience, but if you don't have that much experience, which is probably why you're watching this tutorial, is just mess around with the cube. Mess around with the cube, you know. Extrude it up, scale it on the X, so 0. Now it's a little house. You know, stuff like that. Just practicing your skills. It's a good thing to practice and can help you out when you get into more complex modeling. And I'm just using extrude right now. I'm just using extrude, only extrude. So, extrude. You could probably model a low poly dollhouse with just extrude and the basic functions. And now it just looks like so. There you go. You can move these in using these arrows. You can drag objects in or out, and on the different axes, it's like pressing G and Z, except I'm using it right here. And then let's say I wanted a door. So I don't know how to do a door, right? So can I extrude it and scale it? No, that wouldn't be very good. It doesn't look very good because it starts to intersect. So, what can you do? You can press Control or Command and then R. Then you'll be able to get a loop select tool, meaning you can create new lines. And you can move it across or something like that. I would just recommend right clicking to get an exact point. But I don't want it there. I want it right down that direction, and I want it right here, and then I want it, nope, I don't want it there, so Control Z, I want it right there. So now, I'm going to do another loop cut, and now I can go face select mode, delete that face. So now, I have a little doorway area, or little entryway area, and you can zoom in and see it's hollow on the inside. Pretty much all of your models are going to be hollow on the inside. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. Now we can delete this object and create a new cube. So there we go. That's some of the basics of Blender, and I showed you how to create a basic 3D model. If you need to, I recommend, if you're actually going to do a house, scaling it up by 8, yeah, there it is. Scaling your cube up by 8, pressing enter or clicking. Then you have an actual, like, big house. And next time, I'll probably be talking about more complex stuff. If you need some slightly more advanced tutorials, because you didn't quite get this one, I will be linking. I probably will have some linked below, so you can explore and get to know the interface better. I'm going to talk about some basic lighting here, just now for a second. So there are lights in Blender, and these lights are very important if you're going to be rendering directly in Blender. Now, I'm going to be moving my camera out of there, so Control-Alt-0 puts the camera in the position you are at, so I'm going to zoom in. There we go. So now I can grab my camera and move it up. There we go. So, now my camera is in the correct position, and I need to set my lighting, because right now it looks like this, which is fairly boring. And I want my giant cube to be red. So, I'm going to go over to here in my Properties panel, and activate the material. Press New, and I can adjust this to red. Now, I'm going to turn up my reference, and this is what it will look like. It shows me a preview here. I can cycle through. Monkey head, blades of grass, basically, is what that typically is for. Rendered mode, completely. Then plane, sphere, and there's a cube again. And now I need to set my light. My light right now is a point light. There's no way to rotate it. It just points. It just comes out from that location. Now if I go to rendered preview, it's fairly boring. If I hit use nodes, I can turn up the emission, and eventually it will start affecting it, like so. But I feel like I want mine to be a sunlight. So now I can set mine to, say, blue or red. Red would actually give it the most brightness, but I can make it like tint of orange, like so, like sunlight. Then I can turn up the brightness or turn it down. I recommend keeping it like that. Now with cycle shading mode, I'm gonna have this harsh sunlight. Have this be harsh sunlight. So therefore, I'm going to want it very shadowed on the other side. But keep in mind that the sky also has light. So I'm gonna go over to my world view here, use nodes, and I can set this to white. So now, or actually to blue. There we go. So now I have my blue light coming from the sky. Like so. So now, I have my completed cube, and I have my lamp, which I'm going to edit now. Turn down the brightness a bit. Or I can set my sky to actually be a... Where did it go? It's supposed to be a sky mode, but I'm having trouble finding it. Okay, there it is. And sky texture. So now I have an actual sky. So strength, more. There's my sky. And if I were to render this out, it would look like so. Which is decent. And say I keep seeing these specks. You can see these little dots here. I want to remove some of those. So I'm going to take my sampling down here and turn it up. So 250 is just a bit overkill, but we're going to do that anyway, and it will render it out, and as you can see, the specks are gone. And there we go. We have a nicely rendered cube, and this is going to wrap up the tutorial. Hopefully you enjoyed, hopefully you learned a few things. I might talk about texturing in the future, or I might just leave a link in the description to a texturing tutorial, which will basically teach you how to apply a cool material to this cube. Another thing I'm just going to quickly cover now is there's multiple modes. So these are all your different modes. Now you don't have to worry about some of these unless you're doing game design in Blender. But I'm actually going to be showing you how to use a different piece of software for game design. But we're actually going to want to... All you should have to worry about is this node editor, which don't get scared by it. it's actually not as scary as it seems when you look at it. So when you add, like, I can add, say, a new mix shader. So I mix two shaders together, and I can add a new shader, and then I can add a shader here. Wait, no, sorry. I can add a diffuse shader. So now I'm gonna mix red and white, basically. I can change the factor amount, stuff like that. It's actually fairly basic if you think through it logically. But what you're gonna want to do is eventually you're going to be using this to create all of your materials. But don't worry about it now. There are lots of modes in Blender. So this is one of them. If you want to remove it, just take this little, if you want to get a new view, take this little thing in the corner, drag it over the previous one to remove it, or drag it over to the away from the previous one to add a new one. And there we go. So now I have my nice cube rendered out. We've learned lighting, basic navigation, how to use materials, what some different panels are, and finally there's one last thing I want to teach you, is that there's one more view. It is the UV/image editor. Now this is going to be helpful for when you're doing UV unwrapping. Tab A. So I just basically selected all of my object, like so. Hit U and unwrap. Now I have a UV unwrapped object that I can now go in. So let's say new material, we'll just have that. Now I have my object UV unwrapped to this, meaning that, yeah, anyway, the sides are assigned to this. So if I select this side takes up that much of the texture now, as you can see. So, the idea of UV unwrapping is that you can basically apply textures to your object, which is very important. It gives it realism, and you can't just use colors forever. So, I recommend learning UV unwrapping. I'll probably link a tutorial in the description. This is just like completely failing at 3D or UV unwrapping, because this is not how you should be UV unwrapping. If I select all, it's not doing very well. In fact, this one is even intersecting with the other one, so let's move that down. They should not be different sizes as well, is another thing I'm doing that I shouldn't be. And let's select this one again, scale it down, put it in the corner. As you can see, I did not do a very good job at UV unwrapping this one, but if you were to you can do a better job with actually watching a tutorial, and this is just like quick. So yeah, then I can assign a texture, and I can paint onto the object, other stuff like that. Cool stuff. Make sure you watch some of the tutorials I linked below. If you'd like to see a different Blender Basics tutorial, if you'd like to see another tutorial on the Blender Basics, let me know. I'm probably going to be releasing a tutorial on how you can use your Blender models in CryEngine, which is a game engine. You can download the free SDK, and it's really cool, helpful, and I recommend checking it out. So, yeah, let me know if you would like to see another tutorial, what you would like to see on the channel, because I do a lot of stuff, but I don't know what to post on the channel. So, let me know, comment section below, like if you liked the video, dislike if you didn't like the video. I'll take that into account and not make this video, or make videos like this anymore. And subscribe if you would like to see more content. I'm working on getting new content out, and I'm hoping on a 20 subscriber special. Since we're almost there. 17, 18, 19, 20. 18, 19, 20. We're 3 people away. So if we can get those 3 people subscribed, we can have a 20 subscriber special. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna try and release a video every day this week, but the rest of these 2 weeks, I think, yeah. And if I don't release a day, it means that I'm working on something awesome. Or not awesome, depending on what you think is awesome. But thank you for watching. We've looked at the basics of Blender, how to use Blender, all of that. To duplicate objects, Shift D. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. I forget to mention a lot of stuff. Anyway, you can use Blender to 3D animate. And you can even do Minecraft animations in Blender if you so choose. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And let me know if you like this video. If you would like a sequel to this video, let me know. I can then make a sequel. So, thank you for watching. Bye.